The great hall of stars was silent. Thousands of alien nobles sat in golden seats, their jeweled eyes glowing in the dark. Tall banners of forgotten wars hung from the ceiling, each one telling the victories of their empire. At the center of the hall stood the princesses of the royal bloodline, proud, shining, and cruel. They looked down on the galaxy as if it belonged to them alone. And perhaps it did. For 1,000 years their empire ruled the stars. No world dared to speak against them. No race dared to challenge them, but tonight their voices were sharp. Tonight, their anger filled the air. Humans, one princess spat, her silver crown catching the light. They are weak animals, small minds, fragile bodies, and yet they ask for respect? Another princess laughed, her long robe brushing the floor. Respect? They are nothing but servants. Earth is a planet of dirt. Let them clean our ships. Let them farm our food. That is all they are worth. The nobles clapped. The court roared with laughter. To them, humans were dust in the wind, useful but unworthy. But in the shadow of the throne, something stirred. An old law written in forgotten ink had been discovered, a record from the first king of their empire. The paper was ancient, kept hidden for centuries, and in it, a strange inheritance was written. The High Chancellor, a pale creature with eyes like glass, stepped forward. He raised the old scroll. The laughter in the court slowed. "My princesses," the Chancellor said softly, "the will of the first king has been uncovered. It speaks of bloodlines and heirs." The eldest princess frowned. "We are the heirs, we carry his blood. What foolish words are these?" The Chancellor's voice shook. "The will says, should the royal blood mix with another race, a child of that line, no matter how distant, must be honored as heir, by law, by crown, by destiny." The hall froze. No one spoke. The words felt like poison in the air. The youngest princess, her golden eyes burning, whispered, "Another race? Which one?" The Chancellor unrolled the scroll further. His lips trembled. "The will speaks of Earth." The court erupted. "Impossible! Humans cannot be royal! This is a lie!" The princesses shouted louder than the nobles. Their voices rose like fire. "The first king would never taint our blood with humans." One screamed. "Burn that scroll! Destroy it!" shouted another. But the Chancellor did not move. His hands clutched the scroll like it was his soul. "The words are clear. A human carries the blood of kings. By our law, they must be summoned. By our law, they must be given inheritance." The hall turned wild. Voices clashed. Nobles argued. Some cried treason, others demanded truth. And the princesses? Their pride turned to fury. Their faces burned with shame. To think, after all their glory, after all their power, a human might sit among them. The eldest princess struck her throne with her jeweled staff. The hall fell silent. Her eyes were cold as frozen stone. "This is a trick," she said. "A shadow play. We will find this so-called heir, and when we do, we will prove them unworthy. No human will rule beside us. No human will ever touch the crown." The nobles bowed their heads, but whispers ran through the crowd like snakes. If the law was true, if the scroll was real, then nothing could stop the human heir. The Chancellor bowed and stepped back. His heart raced. He knew what the princesses did not. He had already searched the stars. He had already found the name, written in the ancient record. It was a name from Earth. A name simple, fragile, human. And somewhere, far away on that small blue planet, the one called by destiny still lived in peace, unaware that alien eyes now burned with hate for him, unaware that the galaxy itself was about to turn against him. The princesses gathered in secret chambers after the court. Their words were knives. He must never reach the palace. Kill him before he learns the truth. If the law binds us, then we will break the law. But one princess, quiet and cold, did not speak. Her mind was sharp, her heart unreadable. She thought of the law, of the scroll, of the strange words written by the first king long ago. Why would the founder of their empire write of humans? Why? Would he bind them to such a fate? She closed her eyes. A vision of stars and fire filled her mind. Somewhere, a human child was dreaming. Somewhere, destiny was already moving. The princess whispered only one word into the silence. Why? And beyond the palace walls, the galaxy held its breath. For the first time in 1,000 years, the future of the empire was uncertain. For the first time in their proud history, a human would rise. The night was quiet on Earth. A small town slept under the dim glow of streetlights. Houses were old, streets were cracked, and dreams here were small. But in one corner of this forgotten town, a young man tossed and turned in his bed. His name was Daniel. To the world, he was ordinary. To destiny, he was not. Strange dreams haunted him each night. He saw burning stars, crowns of silver, and voices speaking in a language he could not understand. Sometimes he saw golden halls filled with creatures that looked down on him. Sometimes he felt the weight of a throne pressing against his chest. Tonight the dream was different. Tonight it was sharper. He stood in a dark space where stars floated around him. A giant voice echoed, "Blood of kings, forgotten child of earth. Rise." Daniel gasped and woke up, sweat covering his face. He pressed his hands to his chest, his heart raced as if he had been running for miles. "Just another dream," he whispered. "Just another stupid dream." But deep inside he knew it was, not just a dream. The next day was quiet. Daniel worked at a small shop, stacking shelves and carrying boxes. No one noticed him. No one cared. To the world he was invisible, but the universe had already written his name in fire. That night the sky broke. A roar shook the town. Windows rattled. Dogs barked. People ran into the streets. A ball of fire streaked across the sky and crashed into the forest nearby. Trees burned, smoke rose, and the ground trembled. Daniel, like the others, ran toward the fire. But while others stopped at the edge of the forest, fear in their eyes, Daniel kept moving. Something inside pulled him closer. The forest glowed red. Ash rained down, and in the center of the crash a ship lay broken. Its metal was not of this world. Strange lights blinked across its surface. The door hissed open. Daniel froze. Figures stepped out, tall, armored, their skin pale with strange patterns glowing faintly. Their eyes shone like glass, and when they saw him, they did not raise weapons. They did not attack. They knelt. The forest fell silent. Even the fire seemed to bow. "Master," one of the creatures said in a deep voice, "by royal law, by blood, we serve you." Daniel's mouth went dry. What are you talking about?" The alien leader stepped closer and held out a small crystal tablet. Symbols glowed across its surface, but somehow Daniel could read them. His name was carved there. His name, shining in alien light. Daniel staggered back. "No. This is a mistake. I'm nobody." The alien shook his head. "You are heir by inheritance. The blood of kings runs through you. The galaxy waits." The townspeople who had followed him screamed and fled. Some shouted, "About monsters." Others cried about demons. Daniel stood frozen, his life breaking apart in seconds. The alien soldiers surrounded him, protecting him as if he were already a king. "You must come with us," the leader said. "The court waits. The princesses plot against you even now." Daniel's voice trembled. "Princesses? Court? I don't even know you." The leader lowered his voice. "If you stay, you will die. They will find you. They will burn this planet to ash just to erase you." Daniel's heart pounded. His world was small, and now it was being ripped open. He thought of his empty house, of his small job, of his ordinary life. None of it mattered anymore. "Why me?" he whispered. The alien's eyes glowed brighter. "Because your blood was chosen. Because destiny does not ask. It commands." The ship's broken lights flickered back to life. The soldiers guided Daniel inside. He felt the cold metal walls close around him. His town, his world, his earth, slipped away outside the door. The engines roared. The ground shook again. In moments, the ship rose into the sky. leaving the burning forest behind. Through a small window, Daniel watched the world he had always known grow smaller and smaller. He should have felt grief. Instead, he felt fear, a deep fear that nothing would ever be the same. The leader stood beside him. "Prepare yourself. When you arrive, they will not welcome you. The princesses hate you. The nobles mock you. But law binds them. They cannot kill you openly." Daniel turned. "And secretly?" The leader's silence was answer enough. Hours passed. Stars filled the window. Daniel stared at them, his thoughts twisting like a storm. He wanted to scream, he wanted to wake up, but he knew this was no dream. He was being carried into a story written long before his birth. Finally, the alien leader spoke again. His voice was low, heavy. "Remember, Master, they will test you. They will try to break you. But the blood does not lie. Stand firm, or you will be swallowed by the palace before you even reach the throne." Daniel swallowed hard. His hands shook. He had no weapons, no power, no plan. Just a name written in fire. Just a destiny he never asked for, and, somewhere across the stars, alien princesses already whispered his death. The ship cut through the endless dark, crossing rivers of stars and fields of glowing nebulae. Daniel sat near a window, staring at the strange beauty. It felt unreal. Yesterday he stacked shelves in a dusty shop, and now he was flying across galaxies. But the silence inside him was heavy. Fear sat in his chest like iron. The alien soldiers who had brought him treated him with respect, bowing whenever they passed, yet their eyes hid something else. Pity. As the ship slowed, a vast shadow appeared in the distance. It was not a planet, not a moon. It was a palace, an impossible structure floating in space, larger than cities, carved from crystal and gold. Towers reached into the stars like blades. Rings of light circled it, glowing with alien power. Daniel whispered, "That's not a palace. That's a world." The alien leader bowed his head. The royal citadel. The throne of 1,000 years. Daniel's throat went dry. This was where they were taking him. This was where his life would change forever. The ship entered the docking bay, a space wide enough to hold a mountain. Hundreds of soldiers in silver armor stood in perfect lines, their eyes glowing faintly. At the center of the hall, red carpets stretched toward a gate of black stone carved with crowns. Daniel felt his legs weaken. "They're all waiting for me?" "Yes," the leader said quietly. "Not for you, for your blood, remember that." The gate opened. The great hall swallowed him. The hall was even larger than his dreams. Thousands of nobles sat in tiers, dressed in robes of silk and crystal. Their faces were sharp, beautiful, and cruel. They leaned forward, whispering, pointing at him. To them, he was not air. He was dirt. At the far end of the hall on golden thrones sat the princesses. Each wore a crown that seemed alive, glowing faintly with energy. Their eyes burned like suns, cold and proud. Daniel froze as their gazes cut through him. He had never felt so small. The eldest princess rose. Her crown glimmered. Her robe flowed like fire. She lifted her chin, and her voice echoed across the hall. "So this is the human." Laughter rippled through the nobles. Their voices were sharp, mocking. Another princess stood, her eyes like knives. "This creature, this fragile thing dares to walk our hall? He cannot even hold a blade." The youngest princess leaned forward, golden eyes shining with fury. "The law is blind if it calls him heir. I will not bow to dirt." Daniel's fists tightened, but he said nothing. His throat closed. Every eye in the hall pressed on him, like a weight. The chancellor stepped forward, scroll in hand. His voice trembled, but he stood tall. "By the will of the first king, the human is heir. By law, his blood grants him inheritance. None may deny this truth." The eldest princess's smile was sharp. "No one denies the law, but law cannot make him worthy. Worth must be proven." The nobles cheered. Their voices thundered. The princess looked at Daniel. Her words were cold as stone. You stand here by blood, but blood alone is not power. You will be tested. You will be judged. And if you fail, human, no law will save you. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to shout, to argue, to tell them he never asked for this. But he saw their faces. Nothing he said would matter. To them he was already guilty. Guilty of being human. A guard approached him. His armor was black, his face hidden. As he passed, he whispered so quietly only Daniel could hear. Do not eat the food. Do not drink the wine. Watch the shadows. Daniel blinked. Before he could reply, the guard was gone, standing tall and silent as if nothing had been said. The princesses returned to their thrones. The court continued to laugh, mock, and sneer, but Daniel stood in silence, the warning echoing in his ears. The chancellor guided him out of the hall, into long corridors lit with glowing torches. Strange statues lined the walls, warriors with wings, kings with crowns, queens with blades. Daniel's voice finally broke free. They hate me. The chancellor's face was pale. Yes, they will try to break you, perhaps kill you, but you must endure. Daniel stopped walking. His voice rose. Why me? I'm not a king. I'm not strong. I don't understand any of this. The chancellor looked at him with tired eyes. Because destiny does not care what you want. It only cares what you are. Daniel fell silent. His fists shook. His whole body trembled with fear and anger. That night, he was placed in a chamber, high in the palace. The walls were made of crystal, showing the endless stars beyond. Food and drink lay on golden tables, untouched. He stared at them, remembering the guard's words. The silence pressed in. Outside the door, soldiers stood guard. Were they protecting him? Or waiting for him to make a mistake? Daniel lay on the bed, his mind burning. He had no plan, no allies. Only enemies in crowns. Only strangers with blades. And far away he thought of Earth, his small house, his small life. He would never see it again. In the royal chamber across the palace, the princesses gathered. Their words were sharp, their faces full of fury. He must die. The law ties our hands, but shadows are free. Tomorrow we begin. The eldest princess raised her cup of wine. Her smile was cruel. Let the human face our banquet. Let him taste our welcome. If he survives, then perhaps he truly carries royal blood. But I promise you this. He will not survive. The princesses laughed. The sound echoed like knives in the dark, and in his lonely chamber, Daniel closed his eyes. The dream returned. Stars, fire, and a voice whispering from them. For to stand firm or be erased, the palace slept. But in the shadows, death was already waiting. The morning came with the sound of drums. Daniel woke to the echo of horns outside his crystal chamber. Servants entered silently, their faces blank, their movements sharp. They dressed him in robes of silver, far too heavy for his shoulders, and placed a chain of jewels around his neck. Daniel tried to protest, but the servants never answered. Their eyes never met his. When the door opened, guards stepped forward. Their black armor gleamed, their weapons glowing faintly. They led him through long corridors lined with banners of wars he had never heard of. The walls glittered with gold and crystal, but Daniel felt no wonder, only dread. At the end of the path, the doors opened to the banquet hall. It was vast, brighter than the court of yesterday. Long tables stretched like rivers, covered with dishes that steamed with strange colors. Bowls of glowing fruit, meats, from creatures Daniel had never seen, and cups of wine that shimmered like liquid stars. Hundreds of nobles sat waiting. Their eyes turned to him as he entered. Their smiles were sharp, mocking. At the far end, the princesses sat on thrones of silver, their crowns shining in the light. The eldest princess rose, her voice like a blade. Welcome, human. You enter our hall not as servant, but as heir. Tonight, we honor you. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Daniel felt the chill in their words. This was no honor. This was theater. The nobles clapped as he was guided to a seat at the center table. The food before him glowed, rich and strange. A cup of wine sparkled in the light. He remembered the guard's whisper, "Do not eat, do not drink." Daniel sat still, his hands folded, his stomach twisting with hunger. The banquet began. Music filled the air, sharp instruments, voices singing in alien tones. Nobles raised their cups and laughed, telling stories of conquest. Daniel sat silent, listening. Every laugh felt like a knife. Every glance was heavy with scorn. The youngest princess leaned forward, her golden eyes watching him. "Why do you not eat, human?" she asked, her voice sweet but cruel. "Does our food frighten you, or is it too fine for your kind?" The nobles laughed again. Daniel forced his voice steady. "I am not hungry." The princess's smile sharpened. "Not hungry? Strange. Humans are always hungry. Hungry for power, hungry for respect. Perhaps you think yourself above our feast?" He said nothing. The hall grew restless. Then, without warning, a servant carrying a tray stumbled near him. The tray clattered. A knife slipped, flashing in the air. Daniel moved by instinct, leaning back as the blade cut past his throat. The hall gasped. The servant's eyes glowed red for a moment. Too sharp, too focused. Not accident. Assassin. Before Daniel could react, the black armored guard from yesterday moved. His blade struck fast, the servant collapsing before the nobles could scream. Hall froze. The eldest princess stood, her voice ringing. "What is this, blood in my hall?" The guard bowed. The human was targeted. This servant carried poison on his blade. He would have died. Whispers swept the hall. Some nobles gasped in shock. Others smiled behind their hands. The youngest princess slammed her fist on the table. "Lies! A trick to gain pity!" Daniel's voice cracked through the noise. He stood, fists trembling, but his eyes steady. "I don't need pity," he said. "I need truth. Someone here wants me dead. Say it. Don't hide behind poisoned knives." The hall fell silent. The nobles stared, some with surprise, others with hate. The princess's eyes narrowed. The eldest princess's voice was cold. "You dare raise your voice in my hall?" Daniel's hand shook, but he did not sit down. "If you are so proud, then don't send servants. Face me yourself." The silence deepened. For the first time, laughter did not follow his words. For the first time, even the nobles leaned forward, curious. The eldest princess smiled slowly. "Brave words for dirt. Very well. Let us test if courage flows in your weak blood." She clapped her hands. The doors opened. Soldiers marched in, carrying long spears. At their heels walked a creature chained in iron, a beast with scales of fire, its eyes glowing with rage. The nobles cheered. "The trial! The trial!" Daniel's heart stopped. The beast roared, shaking the hall. Its chains rattled as it snapped its jaws. The soldiers released it, and it turned toward him. The eldest princess's voice was sharp as glass. "If you are heir, survive. If not, die like the dirt you are." The beast lunged. Daniel froze for a heartbeat, then dove aside as the creature's jaws snapped where he had stood. Nobles screamed in delight, clapping like it was sport. Daniel rolled, his robe tearing. He stumbled to his feet, heart hammering. The beast charged again. He grabbed a fallen spear from a soldier and raised it with shaking hands. The weight nearly pulled him down. The creature slammed against him. He barely held his ground, the spear tip pressing against its scales. Sparks flew as the beast roared in his face. His arms burned, his legs buckled. "Stand firm," a voice whispered inside his mind, the same voice from his dreams. Strength surged in him. He screamed and pushed with all his might. The spear pierced deeper. The beast roared again, staggering back, blood spilling across the marble floor. The hall fell silent. Daniel stood shaking, the spear trembling in his hands. His chest heaved, his eyes wild. He had survived. The eldest princess's smile faded. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. The nobles whispered, their voices unsure. The youngest princess's voice cracked like fire. This is luck. Nothing more. But Daniel stood tall even as his body trembled. His voice was rough but steady. If this is your welcome, he said, then I promise you, I will not break so easily. The silence of the hall was heavy. For the first time, the court did not laugh. In the shadows, the black-armored guard watched, his lips curled in the faintest smile. The human had survived the first trap, but the princesses were not finished. No, this was only the beginning. The banquet hall still reeked of smoke and blood. Servants hurried to clean the beast's corpse, their faces pale. Nobles whispered from the shadows, shaken by what they had seen. The human had survived, but survival was not victory. The eldest princess stood slowly, her crown glimmering in the torchlight. Her voice echoed across the hall, sharp and cold. He lives. But strength alone is nothing. Words are nothing. Blood is everything, the nobles murmured. Some nodded. Others smiled cruelly. They knew what was coming. The princess raised her jeweled hand. Summon the chamber of fire. Let the human face the trial of blood. The nobles roared with approval. Their voices shook. The hall. Yes, the trial! The trial! Daniel's stomach twisted. He had no idea what they meant, but he knew the sound of a death sentence when he heard it. Guards seized him, dragging him from the banquet hall. Their hands were like iron. The chancellor hurried behind, his pale face even paler than before. Daniel hissed under his breath. What trial? What are they talking about? The chancellor's voice was low, almost shaking. The oldest ritual of the empire. The test of blood. No lie survives it. If you are not royal, you will die. Daniel stumbled. Die? The chancellor looked at him, sorrow in his eyes. Yes, they entered a vast chamber deep within the palace. The air burned hot, heavy with smoke. The floor was carved in circles of black stone, each ring glowing faintly red. At the center stood a tall crystal, clear as glass, flames dancing inside. Priests in silver masks surrounded the chamber, their voices chanting in an ancient tongue. The sound was low, endless, like the growl of the earth itself. The nobles filled the seats above, their eyes hungry. The princesses entered last, walking like shadows of fire. The eldest princess lifted her hand. Silence fell. Human, she said, her voice sharp as steel. Our law demands proof. Your words mean nothing. Your strength means nothing. Only blood will decide. Step into the circle. If you are heir, the crystal will accept you. If you are not, the fire will devour you. The nobles cheered. Daniel stared at the glowing crystal. His chest tightened. His legs felt weak. He whispered, I can't do this. The black-armored guard stood near the door. His hidden voice slipped through the silence. Stand firm. Daniel closed his eyes. That same voice echoed in his dreams. He took a breath, then another. His feet moved forward. Step by step, he entered the circle. The priests raised their hands. The crystal pulsed with light. Place your hand, one intoned, and reveal the truth. Daniel raised his trembling hand. Sweat ran down his forehead. He pressed his palm against the crystal. It burned. Agony shot through his arm. Fire crawled into his veins, racing across his chest. He screamed, falling to his knees. The crystal blazed, flames wrapping around his body. The nobles shouted with glee, He burns. He is not heir. Kill him. End this farce. The youngest princess smiled coldly, her eyes shining. Pathetic. Daniel writhed on the floor. His vision blurred. The fire roared inside him, tearing him apart. Then he heard it. The voice again. Deep. Ancient. Endless. Blood of kings. Do not fall. Rise. Daniel's eyes snapped open. The fire in his veins shifted. No longer agony, but power. No longer pain, but strength. His body trembled, but his hand gripped the crystal tighter. The flames inside it changed, red to gold, wild to steady. The crystal glowed brighter than the sun. The priest fell silent. The hall froze. Daniel rose slowly, the golden fire dancing across his skin. His chest heaved, his eyes burning with light. The nobles gasped. The crystal accepts him. Impossible. A human, royal blood. The eldest princess's eyes widened. For the first time, her mask of calm cracked. The youngest princess shook her head, her lips trembling with rage. No, this cannot be, the fire lies. But the crystal blazed again, sending a wave of golden light across the chamber. The voices of the priests rang out. He is heir. He carries the blood. By law, by fire, by truth, he lives. Daniel collapsed to the floor, the golden fire fading. His body shook, but he still breathed. He was alive. He had passed. The chamber filled with chaos. Nobles shouted, some in fury, some in awe. The court was split in two. The eldest princess turned sharply, her voice like ice. Enough. The trial proves nothing but blood. Blood is not power. He is still human, still dirt. But her eyes betrayed her. For the first time, she feared him. The chancellor rushed to Daniel's side, whispering urgently, "You have done what no human should have done. But beware, their hatred is stronger now. You are not safe." Daniel coughed, his throat raw. When was I ever safe? The black-armored guard stepped forward, bowing his head slightly. Though his face was hidden, his voice carried respect. You survived the fire. That means you will survive the shadows too. If you learn quickly. Daniel forced himself to stand, his legs unsteady. He looked at the nobles, the princesses, the flames. His voice was weak but steady. You wanted truth. Now you have it. I am heir. I am royal. You may hate me, you may despise me, but you cannot erase me. The chamber fell silent. His words hung in the air like steel. For the first time, no one laughed. Above him, the eldest princess narrowed her eyes. Her voice was a whisper, only for her sisters. He has survived the trial. The law binds us tighter. But remember, there are many ways to kill without touching blood. The youngest princess smiled again, cold and cruel. Then we shall break him in other ways. The court will never kneel to a human. And so the whispers of rebellion began to spread. That night, Daniel lay alone in his chamber, the memory of the fire still burning inside his chest. His hands trembled, but deep inside, a spark remained. Not fear, not weakness, something new. For the first time, Daniel wondered if he could do more than survive. Perhaps he could rule. The trial of blood was over, but the empire did not rest. The golden fire still lingered in whispers across the palace halls. Priests trembled. Nobles argued. Some bowed in silence, others spat in rage. The truth could not be denied. The crystal had accepted the human. But truth was not unity. Truth was a blade, and it cut the empire in half. In the royal chamber, the princesses gathered. Torches burned along the walls, their flames flickering against the silver crowns. The eldest princess stood at the head, her face carved from ice. This cannot continue, she said. The fire marked him. The law protects him. But law does not make him king. The youngest princess slammed her hand on the table. Then kill him. End it before the court grows weaker. The third princess, softer in voice but sharp in thought, shook her head. No, the fire was clear. If we kill him, rebellion will follow. Some nobles already whisper of him as chosen. The youngest sneered. Fools! He is human, dirt with a crown. But the middle princess's golden eyes flickered with unease. She remembered the banquet. She remembered the beast. The way the human had stood, trembling but unbroken. She remembered the fire in his blood, perhaps dirt, but dirt that refused to be crushed. The eldest princess raised her hand, silencing the argument. Then we will not kill him. Not yet. We will divide him, break him. If he is crowned, then he must rule, and rule will destroy him faster than poison. The princesses bowed their heads in grim agreement. Daniel, meanwhile, wandered the crystal gardens that night. Strange trees grew under alien stars, their leaves glowing faint blue, their roots humming with hidden power. He touched one, half expecting it to burn him like the crystal had. But it was cool, almost alive. The chancellor walked beside him, robes trailing across the shining floor. His face was tired, his eyes sharp. "You feel the whispers, don't you?" the chancellor asked. Daniel nodded. He could feel eyes on him even when no one was near. Guards, servants, nobles, everyone watched, waiting for him to stumble. "They hate me," Daniel said quietly. The chancellor shook his head. "Not all. Some see the fire as truth. Some see hope." "Hope?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "I can barely stand. I don't know your laws, your customs. I don't even know how to hold a sword the way they do." "What hope am I?" The chancellor stopped, staring at him with an intensity that made Daniel's chest tighten. "You survived the banquet. You survived the trial. Do you not see? You do what you should not. That is hope." That same night, rebellion stirred in secret halls. Nobles in dark robes gathered, their voices hushed. The human lives. He carries the fire. Then, perhaps it is time the princesses fall. If the blood accepts him, then the crown must as well. Others hissed back, "No, to follow a human is shame. He will drag us down. Better war than humiliation." And so the empire began to split, half ready to test loyalty to the old blood, half daring to imagine something new. Daniel's chamber grew less silent. Where once guards only watched him, now whispers reached him. Servants left small offerings. A piece of fruit, a token of crystal, a bow deeper than required. One evening, as he sat alone, a figure entered quietly. A princess, not the eldest, not the youngest, the third. Her golden robe shimmered in the dim light. Her eyes met his, not with hate, not with pride, but with curiosity. "You should not be alive," she said softly. Daniel tensed. "I've heard that before." She tilted her head, studying him. "The fire does not lie. You are air, but you are also human. That makes you both truth and insult." Daniel frowned. "Then why are you here?" She stepped closer, her voice low. "Because the court breaks. Because my sisters cannot agree. And because I wonder what kind of heir you will become." Daniel's chest tightened. "Do you believe me?" Her smile was faint, unreadable. "I do not believe. I only watch. But remember this. In this palace, belief is more dangerous than hate." And then she was gone, leaving him in silence once more. The next morning, horns blared again. The court gathered. Nobles filled the hall, their robes shining, their faces tight. The eldest princess stood tall. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. "By trial the human is heir. By law he cannot be denied. Then let him rule, if he dares. A test of command. A trial of throne." The nobles cheered. Daniel's heart sank. The princess continued. "Tomorrow he will lead judgment over the frontier worlds. He will decide disputes. He will hold the scepter, and all will see, whether he is heir or nothing." The crowd roared. Daniel stood in silence, his stomach twisted. He was no king. He was no ruler. He was just Daniel. But the fire inside him whispered again, "Stand firm, or be erased." That night, as he lay awake, the black armored guard appeared at his door. His voice was low, steady. "The princesses think this will break you. They are wrong. The throne does not test your blood, it tests your will. Remember that." Daniel looked at him, fear in his chest, anger in his veins. "I'm not ready," Daniel said. No one ever is, the guard replied. But destiny does not wait, and so the palace held its breath once more. The empire divided. Nobles restless, princesses scheming. Tomorrow the human would take the throne for the first time, not as guest, not as trial, but as ruler. And whether he rose or fell, the galaxy would never be the same. The dawn came with silence. Not birds, not wind, just the deep hum of the palace walls as if the crystal itself waited for judgment. Daniel stood before a mirror of black stone, wearing the ceremonial robe the servants had given him. The fabric glittered like stars, but it felt heavy, like chains. A golden scepter rested in his hand, cold and unfamiliar. He whispered to himself, "I'm no king," but the fire inside him stirred. Stand firm, or be erased. The great throne room was alive with noise when he entered. Nobles filled the tiers, their voices sharp, their eyes hungry for his failure. At the far end, upon thrones of silver, the princesses waited. The eldest sat proud and cold, the youngest burning with fury, and the middle one, silent, watching. Daniel was led to the central throne, higher than all others. His chest tightened. He wanted to run, but the guard in black armor stood behind him, silent, steady, like a shadow. The chancellor raised his voice. By trial of fire and law, the heir takes the throne. Today, he rules in judgment. The hall fell quiet. Two nobles stepped forward, their robes bright, their faces full of venom. They bowed not to Daniel, but to the princesses. The frontier burns, one said. Two worlds claim the same right. Who will rule? Who will pay tribute? We demand judgment, the second sneered. Let the human decide. Let us see if dirt can choose between stars. The crowd laughed, voices sharp as knives. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to vanish. He wanted to say he didn't know, that this wasn't his place. But he remembered the guard's words. The throne tests your will. He stood slowly, his voice shaking at first but growing stronger. Neither world shall burn. Tribute will be shared. Rule will be shared. If they refuse, then both will lose their claim. The nobles gasped. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some scoffed, some nodded. It was not the answer they expected, not pride, not weakness, something else. Balance. The chancellor's face twitched with surprise. So judged. So written. Daniel sat again, his chest heaving. He had spoken, he had ruled. But the princesses were not finished. The eldest stood. Her smile was sharp. One judgment proves nothing. Let us see his crown in fire. The youngest rose beside her, fury burning in her eyes. Yes, enough games. He is a fraud, and I will end this with my own hands. Gasps filled the hall. The nobles whispered, eyes wide. A duel. Daniel froze. A duel against a princess? Against a warrior who had trained her whole life? He would die. The youngest stepped into the circle, her blade shining like molten sun. Face me, human. If the fire truly chose you, then survive. The nobles cheered wildly. Daniel's hands shook. The guard's voice came low behind him. Take the blade. Trust your fire. A sword was placed in his grip. Heavy. Cold. Daniel stepped into the circle, his heart pounding so loud he thought it would burst. The duel began. The princess struck like lightning, her blade cutting the air. Daniel stumbled back, barely raising, his sword in time. Sparks flew. His arm shook under the force. She struck again, and again, each blow faster, sharper. He stumbled, fell, rolled across the marble. The nobles laughed, shouting for his death, but the fire in his blood stirred. Rose, teeth clenched, eyes blazing. When her blade came again, he moved, not fast, but sure. He blocked, sparks flashing. He struck back, clumsy but strong, forcing her to step back. The hall gasped. The princess snarled. You are nothing! She lunged, blade aimed at his heart. Daniel, twisted, fire roaring in his veins. His blade met hers with a sound like thunder. For a moment, golden light burst across the hall, blinding all who watched. When the light faded, her blade was on the ground. His sword hovered at her throat. Silence. The youngest princess's eyes widened. She froze. For the first time, she looked, not with hate but with shock. Daniel's voice was steady. Kill me if you must, but know this, I will not kneel. Not to you, not to anyone. He lowered the blade. Gasps rippled through the hall. Some nobles clapped. Others whispered in awe. The fire in his blood had spoken louder than any crown. The eldest princess rose slowly, her face unreadable. Her sisters looked to her, waiting. For a heartbeat, it seemed she might order his death. Instead, she bowed her head. Just slightly. The law binds us, the fire binds us, he is heir. The nobles erupted. Some in cheers, some in fury. The empire was broken. But it was decided. The middle princess's lips curved faintly, almost a smile. She whispered, "Perhaps the fire was right." That night the palace burned not with flames, but with whispers. Some nobles pledged loyalty to the human. Others swore rebellion. The empire stood on the edge of war, but Daniel sat on the high throne, weary but unbroken. The scepter was still heavy, the robe still felt like chains. But inside him, the fire burned steady. He was no longer only Daniel. He was heir. He was ruler. He was master of inheritance. Far above the palace, the stars burned brighter, as if the galaxy itself had taken notice. The alien princesses had scorned Earth. They had mocked humanity. But now, one human sat among them, chosen by law and fire, not servant, not prey, master.